Here's a number that stopped me mid-scroll one afternoon. $1.4 million. That's the difference, not between investing and not investing, but between where you invest the same money over 30 years. Same ETFs, same contributions, different account types. One was a taxable brokerage, the other was a Roth IRA. Same person, same strategy, $1.4 million apart at retirement. That gap exists because most people fill their Roth IRA the same way they fill their regular brokerage account, without realizing that the Roth IRA has a unique set of rules that make certain ETFs dramatically better fits than others, and a few popular ones are actually working against you inside that account. Today, I want to show you exactly which 4 ETFs belong in a Roth IRA, and more importantly, why, so you can stop guessing and start making the account work the way it was actually designed to. Before we get into the ETFs, I want to quickly explain the core logic here, because once you understand it, every pick on this list will make complete sense. A Roth IRA is unlike almost every other investment account in one critical way. The money that grows inside it will never be taxed again. Not on dividends, not on capital gains, not when you withdraw it in retirement. Zero. Once the money clears the door, the IRS is done with it. That means the goal of a Roth IRA isn't just to grow your money, it's to grow the right money tax-free, and that changes which ETFs deserve a spot inside it. The framework is simple. Put your highest growth potential assets inside the Roth, where compounding happens in a tax-free environment. Lower growth, income-heavy assets belong elsewhere. Once that clicks, the rest of this is easy. Here's where most people go wrong. They hear Roth IRA and think tax-free income, so they load it up with high dividend ETFs, funds yielding 3%, 4%, sometimes more. On the surface, that feels smart. No taxes on dividends? Sounds perfect. But zoom out. Dividend ETFs by design grow more slowly than growth-focused funds. They're built to pay you now, not to compound aggressively over decades. If you look at the historical returns of a dedicated dividend ETF versus a broad market or growth ETF over a 20-year window, the gap in total return is significant. By filling your Roth with a high-yield dividend fund, you're essentially protecting the wrong asset from taxes, shielding slower growth in the account built for the highest growth. Meanwhile, your faster-growing assets sit in taxable accounts, getting hit every year. It's like putting a bicycle in a race car garage and leaving the Ferrari outside. The better move is to flip that. Use the Roth for your high-growth ETFs. Let the tax-free compounding work on the assets that grow the fastest. And yes, we'll talk about where dividend and bond ETFs actually belong before this video is done. ETF number 1, Growth ETF, VUG or SCHG. The first ETF that belongs in a Roth IRA is a growth-focused fund. 2 solid options, Vanguard's Growth ETF, VUG, and Charles Schwab's U.S. Large Cap Growth ETF, SCHG. Both track different indexes but land in essentially the same place, heavily weighted toward large-cap companies with strong future growth expectations. Technology makes up over 50% of VUG's portfolio, with additional exposure to communication services and consumer discretionary. These sectors have produced some of the strongest long-term compounding in the market, and that's exactly what you want working inside a tax-free account. The expense ratios are both 0.04%. That's 40 cents per $1,000 invested annually, nearly free. Now, here's the part worth understanding. Growth companies typically reinvest profits back into the business rather than paying them out as dividends. VUG's dividend yield sits at roughly 0.4%. That actually helps you inside a Roth IRA. Less dividend income means less distraction from pure price appreciation, and pure appreciation compounds cleanly. The trade-off is volatility. VUG's maximum drawdown over the past 5 years hit nearly 36%, compared to around 25% for the S&P 500. During downturns, growth ETFs can drop harder and faster than more conservative funds. If you're going to hold VUG or SCHG, you need to be the kind of investor who can watch your account drop significantly in a rough year and not touch it. A growth ETF is only as good as your ability to stay in it. ETF number 2, Total U.S. Stock Market, VTI. The second ETF is one I'd argue belongs in almost any long-term portfolio, Vanguard's Total U.S. Stock Market ETF, VTI. What makes VTI different from an S&P 500 fund is that it actually owns everything, not just the top 500 companies, but mid-cap, small-cap, and micro-cap stocks too. Over 3,500 companies in a single fund. Expense ratio, 0.03%. That's 30 cents per $1,000 per year. Here's the interesting part. A lot of funds that call themselves total market don't actually hold most of the market. VTI does. It tracks the CRSP US Total Market Index, which represents approximately 100% of the investable US stock market. It's genuinely as broad as it sounds. This matters in a Roth IRA because the small and mid-cap portion of that fund has historically provided some of the best long-term growth, outperforming large caps over multi-decade periods. You're capturing that growth tax-free. VTI carries a dividend yield of roughly 1.1%, which isn't high enough to be the primary attraction, but it's there. And inside a Roth, it compounds tax-free year after year. If you're someone who wants a single core US holding and doesn't want to overthink it, VTI is probably the cleanest answer. Before we get to the last two ETFs, I want to address something that most videos gloss over, because understanding why certain ETFs don't belong in a Roth is just as important as knowing which ones do. The Roth IRA has a contribution limit, $7,500 per year in 2026. That's it. You can't just move money in and out freely. So every dollar of contribution space is genuinely valuable. Putting a lower growth asset in that space isn't just suboptimal, it's an opportunity cost that compounds over decades. Here's a quick example. Assume you contribute $7,500 per year and it grows at 6% annually, more typical of a bond or dividend-heavy allocation. Over 30 years, that's roughly $593,000 tax-free. Now run the same math at 10% growth, more aligned with a broad market or growth ETF, and you're looking at over $1.23 million. Same contributions, same account, $637,000 difference. That's why the type of ETF you put inside a Roth IRA actually matters at a scale most people don't appreciate until they run the numbers themselves. ETF number 3, S&P 500 Index Fund, VOO or IVV. The third ETF is the most famous index in the world, the S&P 500. Vanguard's VOO and iShares IVV are the two most widely held versions. Both charge 0.03%, 30 cents per $1,000 per year. The S&P 500 tracks 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the US. It's market cap weighted, meaning the biggest companies have the biggest influence on performance. As of now, the top positions are Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft, each carrying a significant share of the fund's weight. When any of those larger companies move sharply in either direction, you'll feel it in an S&P 500 fund. That concentration sounds risky, but it's worth looking at what it actually reflects, the market's own judgment about which companies have generated the most value. And over long stretches, following that judgment has worked extremely well. The S&P 500 has delivered roughly 10% annualized returns historically before inflation, and inside a Roth IRA, none of those gains are taxable. VOO versus VTI comes up constantly, and the honest answer is they're close. VTI gives you slightly more diversification with the small caps. VOO gives you a cleaner focus on large cap performance. Historically, the returns have been similar. If you had both, you'd just own a more large cap weighted version of VTI. Pick one, stay consistent. ETF number 4, International ETF, VXUS or IXUS. The fourth ETF is also the most debated, and I'll acknowledge that up front. Vanguard's VXUS and iShares IXUS give you exposure to the global stock market outside the US, developed markets like Japan, the UK, and Germany, plus emerging markets like India, Brazil, and China. VXUS holds over 8,600 companies across dozens of countries. Its top holdings include Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, ASML, and Samsung. IXUS covers a similar universe with around 4,200 holdings. VXUS charges 0.05% annually. That's 50 cents per $1,000. IXUS charges 0.07% or 70 cents per $1,000. The common objection is fair.
US stocks have dramatically outperformed the international stocks over the last decade. Why bother? Here's the thing, we can't invest in the past, and when you look at longer historical windows, international stocks have had extended periods of outperforming the US. Nobody knows when the next one starts. In fact, international ETFs have significantly outperformed US funds in 2025 alone, a reminder that these cycles can turn faster than people expect. The reason an international ETF specifically belongs in a Roth IRA is the same logic that drives the whole list. If international stocks do outperform US stocks over the next 20 to 30 years, you want that growth happening in a tax-free account, not a taxable one. It's a hedge, not a prediction, and at 0.05%, VXUS is cheap enough that the hedge costs you almost nothing. So here's how these four actually fit together. You don't need all four simultaneously. Portfolio construction depends on your age, risk tolerance, and how many accounts you're managing. But if I were thinking about a simple Roth IRA portfolio, the logic would look something like this. Aggressive growth phase, 20s, 30s, VUG or SCHG as a primary holding, VTI as a complement, VXUS for international exposure. Balanced growth phase, 40s, shift toward VTI or VOO as the core, reduce the pure growth weighting, keep some international exposure. Approaching retirement, 50s plus, still favor stocks over bonds in the Roth, let the account keep compounding, and hold bonds in your pre-tax accounts instead. The fees across all four ETFs are almost negligible. The diversification is broad, and none of them require you to constantly monitor or adjust. The metrics that actually matter: expense ratio, keep it under 0.10%, long-term historical return, and how well the fund fits the growth-first logic of a tax-free account. One more thing, the 2026 Roth IRA contribution limit is $7,500, or $8,600 if you're 50 or older. If you're not already maxing it, that's the single most actionable step you can take today. The Roth IRA might be the single most powerful wealth-building tool most people have access to, but it only works that way if you treat it like one. The four ETFs we covered today, a growth fund, a total US market fund, an S&P 500 fund, and an international fund, aren't flashy, they don't pay enormous dividends, they won't get you featured in any investing forum highlight reel, but they're built for what a Roth IRA is actually designed to do: compound growth in a space the IRS can never touch again. That's not a small thing. Over 30 years, it's the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes more. If you're already holding dividend ETFs or bond funds inside your Roth, I'd genuinely encourage you to run the numbers on what a shift might look like. Not because those funds are bad, they're not, but because where you hold them matters as much as what you hold. Drop a comment below if you're currently holding any of these four, or if there's an ETF you're considering that I didn't cover. I read them. And if you want to see how to structure these into an actual portfolio, allocation percentages, account type breakdown, the full setup, that's the next video.